In the story of India's cultural renaissance, few names stand as tall as Khushroo N Suntook. He's a lawyer, entrepreneur, and above all, a lifelong devotee of the arts. From early influences at home to his role as chairman of the NCPA and the guiding force behind the Symphony Orchestra of India, his journey is proof that passion can become a legacy. In this episode of the Bombay Blueprint, we explore the life of a man who has shaped Mumbai's cultural heart, and he continues to inspire generations. Mr. Santook, it's a pleasure to be talking to you.
Thank you.
It's something that I've dreamed of, and I'm glad my dream is coming true.
I have to live up to it now.
You will. You're an amazing person. Okay. Mr. Santook, you have a very vast and interesting life. But let's try to break it up into three parts.
Yes, sure.
The first is your early part, how you began. I believe you're a fantastic tennis player.
Not fantastic.
Okay.
Good.
Okay, good tennis player.
Yeah.
So we'd like to know your early life and how you got from your early life to becoming an entrepreneur, an innovator. And then the second part will talk about your corporate experience. And the third part will talk about culture.
Well,
So let's start with the first one.
yes, I was very fortunate having been born in a family
Uh-huh.
which was very artistically inclined.
Wow.
My father's side were all lawyers. My mother's were all judges. And they were expecting me to follow the legal trade.
Yeah.
And I did. I went and did my law. I became an advocate.
Okay.
And I joined my father's firm, which is Mullah and Mullah at that time, quite prominent. And I joined at the time that they were doing the distribution of wealth from the princes to the center. They were removing it and giving them a sort of a annual fee.
The
and
privy purse.
and my father was the solicitor to the Nizam, etc. So it was a very interesting period. And we met this man called V.P. Menon, who was in the Transfer of Power in India. It's a great book that he wrote. And the house was surrounded by lawyers, by musical people, who was my mother's area.
Okay.
And she was a reasonable amateur pianist. And we had a lot of people, especially old Mellimeta, etc. They were all friends. So I was surrounded by music quite a lot. And I was always upset because I was fortunate to have gone on a trip in 1950 when I was 15 with a wonderful group of people which included Karl Kandalawala, Dr. Baba, Homi, and all the rest of them. And we had 4 months in Europe. My father went to see Father Valls, who was the principal of St. Mary's,
Okay.
to say, I want to take my son on a cultural trip. He'll miss 2 months of school.
Okay.
Father Valls was one of those enlightened souls who said, well, that if you're going with these people, it's worth more than spending 2 months in school. But he must do his homework and send it every week. So all that. So we went around Europe, all the place, Florence, Italy, Verona, Vienna, London, Paris, etc. And there I was inculcated into love of art, paintings. Homi Baba asked once, what do you think about Leonardo da Vinci's brush strokes? I said, I don't know. Not a thing did I know. Don't you see that he is left-handed? You know, things like that. Look at the colors of Botticelli, look at the colors of Raphael, etc., etc. Then we went to our first opera. We heard a lot of music there. And the crowning glory was that he said, we'll go and meet Pope Pius XIV. At that time, he was not meeting anybody. But Dr. Baba managed through the whatever influence he had. But the trouble was that I was carrying 25 rosaries from all my Christian friends to have them blessed by the Pope. So as he came along talking to everybody, he came to me and I had to kneel. I dropped them all. And he was a gentle person. He lifted them up, put them back. He said, don't worry. What school do you go to? I said, I go to a Jesuit school. Oh, that's very good. We are pretty good at teaching, he said. And then we saw the Sistine Chapel and all that. It was a wonderful trip. That set me right with music, etc. Then, of course, there was the battle between tennis and music. And my teacher said, you either decide this way or that way. And I decided tennis.
Okay.
So then played a bit of tennis and did quite well in the state area. I was in national, tried for Wimbledon, but didn't get in.
Okay.
I sprained my leg in the last qualifying round. So that was it. And in the meantime, there were records and records and records, grandfather's collection. So we used to hear records deep into the night. 78's old collection.
Yeah, old collection.
Yeah. And my aunt used to go to Bayreuth to hear Wagner.
Okay.
And she used to come back with a lot of information, etc. So I was surrounded by the cultural area of atmosphere of culture, you can say. Then we, of course, went to St. Mary's, where we had the most wonderful teachers. And there was Father Dürr, he was a German, and he explained to us what a pity that Rommel didn't take instructions and followed Hitler. Otherwise, we would have won the war, which was quite shocking. I said, my God. So he was a bit like that. But we had Spanish priests who were musicians. We had a teacher who had learned with great singers. So the whole atmosphere was very good. And after St. Mary's, of course, Xavier's, where it was more fun and games for a little while. I did my law later, and then, as was reckoned to be my fate, I had to join my father's law firm. So I went there, I did my articles, I became an advocate, and then said, what the hell am I doing here, you know? I didn't like all the quarrels and the cases and the court and this and that.
And courts can be depressing.
Yeah. And then Sir Jamsetji Kanga was the great lawyer at the time. And he was a friend of my grandmother's.
Okay.
So I used to carry briefs from Mullah and Mullah to him. Just carrying, I was a postman to handle things. And he said, what the devil are you doing over here? Don't waste your time. Tell your father I said you shouldn't be here. So I dare not say that. But who was in his chamber? Nani Palkhiwala, Fali Nariman, and Soli Sarabji, his three juniors, who became
giants.
But he was an extraordinary giant. 6'3", and he would tell the judges, you should read your law, my lord, before I argue with you. He had that kind of
authority.
Yeah. So I was surrounded by all these wonderful people. And I told my father, I said, I really don't enjoy this very much. In the meantime, he had Italian clients who were, it was enemy property at the time. And he was custodian of enemy property, my father.
Okay.
So there, he had a family from the Bisleri group from Milan, whose mother owned the big Bisleri company in Italy. And they were going to have it confiscated because they had a anti-malarial manufacturing facility at Hornby Road, at Old Dadar. So that was taken away by the Indian government as part of the seizing of enemy property.
Yes.
But Bisleri was famous for its wines, Ferrocchina, etc., an anti-malarial drug and an a pure water. Their mineral water was supposed to be the finest in Italy. So they sent their son, a very handsome fellow, who became my close partner and dearest friend, and he was sent to meet my father. And as he came out, he said, your father frightened me, he was telling me. But he sent his card out. So he said, why? He says, because all your girlfriends' names are written behind your card. So it was so he was most upset.
Yes.
Anyway, we started Bisleri with an idea, and we met Walters. Rudy von Leyden was the chief over there, and we got a piece of land at Wagle Industrial Estate,
Okay.
and the technical people came from Milan, and the machinery was bought. We had 2 acres of land and built quite a magnificent factory there and manufactured it. We had to have silver sterilizers.
Yes.
Everything was silver. Nothing could be filter. So the water was very good, etc. So
That would have been water, not wines this time.
no.
Yes.
Not because it was heavy prohibition and all.
Yes.
So we said we'll gradually introduce it when it eases. So we had this water, etc. And Walters as the distributors, etc. And it went very well. The Taj bought it, this and that. So suddenly, after 2 or 3 years, there was a message from Madame Bisleri, who was the mother of this friend of mine, sell the company. And she was the majority. Why? Why? We're doing well. Because on the day we were opening a big distribution center in Mumbai, her brothers crashed in an aeroplane. And you know how suspicious the Italians are. She reckoned it was due to the bad luck from this Bisleri office.
Oh.
Completely irrational. So
You had no choice.
we were playing tennis with Mr. Chauhan of Parle. So I told him, Narottam, do you want to buy a water company? He said, no, that my brother deals with. So he said, and we made a deal, and we sold the company to the Parle people. Narottam Chauhan.
That's how it became Parle Company.
And then how big did the fellow get? It became a big hit. And so that was the end of Bisleri for me.
But you started it in India.
Yeah. For 2 years, we did quite well. And eventually, I got a telephone call from Mr. Naval Tata to say, my father was a director and a trustee of the Tata Trust and all that, to say my wife has started a cosmetic company and she needs somebody. And so I went and saw Simone, and she was, of course, charming and extremely elegant and nice. And she said, join Tomco. I said, no, I don't want a big company like Tomco. So join Lakme. And so I got in there. We opened a new factory. Then we opened 4 new factories at Kandla with export promotion zone, because we went to Russia and got orders from there. And then we went into pharmaceuticals, etc., etc. And finally into manufacture of medical equipment with Toshiba.
Okay.
That was a quietly thing, but that made us the maximum profit.
So Lakme and other cosmetic brands came later.
Lakme went on, but we moved it out to another set of people.
Okay.
I became more interested in the medical equipment and the pharmaceutical.
Okay.
So we sold a lot of it to Russia mainly.
Yes.
And that made me go to Russia.
Just one little question. Russia provided a lot of pharmaceutical assistance to India through IDPL.
Yes.
At that time, nobody gave us technology. Russians gave us technology.
Yes, that is true.
So why were we exported to Russia?
Because we were exporting specialist drugs, anti-TB, and then finally, very interestingly, one of my colleagues in Russia who became friends because he liked music and we liked music. So we talk about business afterwards. Let's talk business first. He said we want a drug called Sermion, which is supposed to be anti-aging, and which was made by Cyrus Poonawalla at the factory in Pune. Cyrus, a friend of mine, we went to him and he said, will you do it? He said, oh, will I get the money from Russia? I said, of course you will. So for 7 years, we supplied this drug called Sermion.
Okay.
And that was very profitable. And he had the most wonderful shall we say, art of freezing
I've been
the
to his
mum.
house. I've been to his house, yes.
You've been to his factory?
Not to the factory, but his house where we talked about, which is next to this lawn, which is like a golf course.
Yeah. Of course, that's Saris. And so he did very well, we did very well, and we went on and on and on. And then finally, there was a decision taken at Bombay House by the directors, not only of our company, but of the Tata Sons board, that no smaller companies, we are going to concentrate only on the large ones. And we were the ones which were sold to Tomco.
Okay.
Tomco was our owner. Lakme was a subsidiary of Tomco. It was then merged into Tomco.
Okay.
And then Mr. Setna became the managing director. And of course, he was a great
So
friend.
your stint with the Tatas began from when? After you joined Simon Tata?
Yes.
Okay.
68 I joined, and up to 2000 I was with them.
Okay.
In
That's a long,
several
long
areas,
time.
yes. I was a director in Tomco, in Tata Finance, Tata Services, in Associated Building, and many others. It's about 8 or 9 companies. So it was fine. I enjoyed myself, but it was not, I was not basically a businessman. They used to all tease me to say, you seem to be exporting to all the cities which have opera houses. They used to tease me. And I said, yeah, that's true. Milan, Vienna, Moscow.
Petersburg and Moscow, everywhere.
So then it was doing well, and I used to interact with Dr. Baba quite a lot in those days, because he was at the Tata Theatre was going on at that time. And he used to ask me, who shall I do, who shall I call, etc. So eventually we became quite close, although he was my mother's friend. But he was working 2 floors up.
Okay.
And so, come up. And then we'd have to go up, and he'd chat about this, that, and the other. Eventually, when I was about to retire, he phones me and he said, you have to join the NCPA. Then I got IMG to do a study.
Okay.
And Dr. Baba paid the bill himself. Opera House is burnt down. I was in Mahabaleshwar. Next day, he convened a meeting while the fires were still...
The embers were still burning, yes.
He says, no recrimination, no blaming, nothing. We start reconstruction tomorrow. And if you read the vision statement of JRD and Jamshed, it is to create an institution which gives the highest form of music and related arts to the city of Mumbai.
You developed this place for theatre, for music, both Indian as well as Western. You developed NCPA into a throbbingly vibrant organization.
We hope.
What is your plan now?